This is the case 1,570 years ago when many Berberis tribes attacked the Roman Empire. Berberis and swans attacked many cities of the Roman Empire and caused a lot of destruction. The people living there wanted to run away to save their lives. But on one side there was the Adriatic Sea and on the other side the Trenian Sea was blocking their path. They had only one option left, so they started running to the nearby islands in the sea. After reaching there, they were saved from the attacks. But these islands were formed in Sahili Lake, whose soil was so soft that even humans could not stand on it. But against all odds, these people not only settled here but also showed feats of engineering one after another by building buildings, canals, and bridges. There was no soft soil or clean drinking water. But still, the Venetians made it the most powerful city. How was all this possible? Those small islands on which it was not even possible to stand. How was such a big city erected about 1,000 years ago? Once again, in the videos of Legends Lessons we explore this mystery. The people who initially went to these islands after leaving the happy Nazarene Roman cities had no place to live here. The ground was like soft mortar on which no one could walk. At that time, many people suggested going back to the Sahel, but returning meant death. The Berberis and the Huns were some nomadic tribes of northern Europe who had been defeated by the Romans. Taking advantage of the empire's weakness, they attacked here. The situation became so serious that it was a compulsion for them to live on these soft islands. There were more than 150 small marshy islands 5 kilometers away from Sahel, but all of them were in dire conditions. During this time, one of the refugees was sinking into the ground. To save himself, he dug the oar of his boat into the ground, and after going down several feet, it became absolutely solid. It was from here that they got the idea which later became the foundation of Venice City. A few kilometers away from where present-day Croatia is, tree trunks were brought from the forest and they were hammered on marshy islands, buried about 5 meters deep. After going down, these stems would go into the hard soil of the ground and make their grip. These would be hammered close to each other so that a stable platform could be formed. After putting the piles inside, the upper part of these was cut and leveled and wooden planks were laid on it so that the entire load could be divided equally among the piles. To raise this foundation above the water level, special limestone blocks were placed. A load of stones was placed on top and 5-meter-long wooden piles were used. This simple combination was enough to create a strong foundation. The wooden stems, which were now underwater, swelled and became tight to each other, leaving no room for air to pass between them. This is the reason why the piles which were buried about 1,000 years ago in Venice are still bearing the weight of the city in perfect condition. After laying the foundation, the work of constructing buildings on top of it was started. Initially, the Venetians built wooden houses, but these often caught fire during cooking, etc. Later, the use of bricks also started, to keep the buildings light. Houses were not kept more than 3 stories tall and were made with limestone powder in between the bricks. Special mortar was poured to make the walls strong as well as flexible. The floors and inner walls were made of wooden planks which were held by inserting iron rods from outside. This idea became quite famous in Venice and soon this method was widely used. Normally, cities spread outwards, but Venice started spreading inwards. Earlier, it used to be that only boats were available to go from one island to another. But later, when the population started increasing, the islands started getting closer and closer, and now in low water, the islands could be crossed even by sitting on horses. Now the most important need in Venice City was to connect these islands among themselves. For 500 years, these islands were not connected to each other. But when the population increased a lot and the business started slowing down, then the business hub, called Rialto, first tried to build a simple wooden bridge. The bridge is called Ponto Bridge, in which the passage is made with the help of floats. It became easy to reach the platform through this bridge, but because it was standing with the support of floats, it kept shaking a lot and often people would fall from it. Later, a permanent wooden bridge was also built here, but in the year 1310, due to the commotion of a rye, it was set on fire. Even after the fire, the permanent bridge remained intact for the next 140 years. But finally, in the year 1444, it collapsed due to excessive load. Ultimately, it was decided to build the first stone bridge of Venice here to connect the Rialto. The same method was used to build it, with the help of which thousands, more than 12,000 wooden piles were driven into the banks of the canal. and a stone arch bridge weighing 10,000 tons was constructed over them. This bridge was so successful that similar structures were built all over Venice. From 1500 onwards, bridges made of stone started being built. Even today, these bridges bear the weight of people standing there with the same strength. With the help of these bridges, it became even easier to go from one island to another. In Venice, there are no roads but only canals, and one can reach from one place to another through these canals. The advantage of Venice was its ease in transporting goods to any corner of the city. In other cities, at that time, there were only paths for pedestrians, horses, and carriages, leading to a lot of congestion. But Venice was completely different. Here, the path for pedestrians was separate from the boats running in the canal. The biggest advantage was that one could get off the canal anywhere and quickly reach their home. In no time, Venice became the most powerful and richest city in Europe. And the biggest reason for this was its location. On the map, at the end of the Adriatic Sea is Venice, connected directly to the Mediterranean Sea. The Mediterranean Sea links Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. Even today, the easiest and cheapest way to transport goods is considered to be by sea. Ships could easily reach the end of the Adriatic Sea where Venice is located. Due to increased business activity, the Venetians became very wealthy. Seeing this, people from nearby countries also started settling in Venice, and soon the population surged. The demand for drinking water in Venice grew very high. Although surrounded by water, the seawater was salty and undrinkable. Due to the absence of natural springs, fresh water did not accumulate here. Drinking water in Venice came from the mainland, brought in drums full of water on boats. But when the population reached 170,000, there was a shortage of water. Once again, the Venetian engineers had to use their brains. Something had to be done to ensure the increasing population could get drinking water, or else the business would be affected. Parts of the islands in Venice had no construction, and rainwater was stored there by digging deep pits, making the walls waterproof with soil and mortar. If you think water was stored directly in these pits, it's not so. Venice had a different, more advanced idea. Wells were made in these pits, surrounded by sand and stones, and tiles were placed on top. Some holes were left on the surface through which rainwater could seep in, passing through the sand and stones, and getting filtered. This natural filtration process, similar to how rainwater gets purified through mountains, was ingenious. Over 600 small and big filter wells were installed in no time, shared by 10 to 12 houses together. This system ensured the increasing population had access to drinking water. But there was still a big issue: sewerage. Normally, cities have underground sewerage lines, but Venice had no ground for such lines. So, where would the sewerage go? Till now, people threw waste in the canal, but those without a canal in front of their house threw garbage. On the pathways, there was often a bad smell. In the 16th century, the Venetians made drains for waste collection from the houses, with the help of which the waste used to fall directly into the lake. These drains were above the normal level of the canal. The liquid waste from the drains would fall into the canal immediately, but the solid waste remained in the drain. Then, during high tide, when the canal got clogged, the water level would increase and pull the solid waste into the canal. There are high tides in the sea twice a day, and in such situations, the drains would clean themselves twice a day due to the high and low tides. Seawater would enter the canals of Venice and replace the polluted water. This way, not only the drains but also the canals of Venice would remain clean, and because it is salt water, it did not have any negative effects. Even today, the same sewerage system works in Venice. Surprisingly, the engineering by which Venice was built 1,000 years ago is still working. Building foundations, canal bridges, and the sewerage system all stand strong. Let me tell you, Venice is slowly sinking into the ground, a natural process due to which the city sinks 1 to 2 millimeters each year. This is the only city in the world where there are no vehicles, no motorbikes. Every year, Venice faces a flood called acqua alta. In winter, the water level increases a lot, and often the walkways go underwater. Every year, 6 million people visit Venice, but the local population is less than 50,000. I hope you all will like and share this video from Legends and Lessons. Thank you very much for your loving comments. See you in the next great video.